Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 257. We are covering movies that are opening the week of Friday, movies opening the week of August 30th, 2024. The movies are The Wasp, First Shift, directed by who, Eric Holmes? Directed by who? First Shift? Uwe Boll, yes. City of Dreams and Slingshot. Eric Holmes also has a couple of recommendations. Bruce Purkey has still not been let out of the attic, but he still has some really interesting movie reviews as well in the attic. Well, he's doing such a good job. There must be some great Wi-Fi in your domicile.
Yeah, his water bowl may not be full, but his Wi-Fi is working. So
very, very good. I love it. Eric Holmes, for this week, do we have some good movies, or should people leave right now and not listen to any cinematics because we just got a bunch of sucky movies ahead of us?
Oh, we got some bangers.
Oh, we have some bangers. All right.
Some bangers.
How has your last week been? I mean, just some chitty chat. You've been working a lot. Have you been watching a lot of movies? What do you remember from the last blur of the week?
It is a blur. Watch a ton of movies. Worked a lot. I'm trying to think of the last time I had a day off. I don't.
Are you working?
It's been a couple weeks.
Are you working 7 days a week? Are you really doing that?
Yeah, it's fine now, but I could see myself getting burned out pretty quick. But hasn't happened yet, so we'll keep it up.
You're not supposed to. You haven't had a full day off. Maybe have you had a full 14 hours just to yourself, so you can just stare at the screen and relax and just drink a beer and look at your wonderful movie regalia in the wall. You can't do that. You haven't been able to do that in 2 weeks.
That's when I'm not working and I'm watching the movies for the podcast, especially when we got a week like this, makes it that much easier.
Oh, makes it that much easier.
Sometimes we'll get movies where it's like, I should be clocking in for this. This is not that week. There's a couple
there's a couple of clock watchers, a couple of clocks where you're saying, I wish I did not have to watch too many movies a week. There's a couple of those in here.
Yeah, but
okay, that's fair.
Actually, let me see. We got.
Yeah, I know which movies you're talking about. Work it up.
Actually, there's only really one, and the one that I didn't like, I didn't hate. So.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
The worst one this week is still not bad.
Okay. Also, I wanted to do a little plug for this month. This is actually the waning days of August 2024. August, we have the bonus Patreon episode of the year 1980, and we cover the Long Kiss Goodnight, The Long Good Friday, starring Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren, and Dressed to Kill, the Brian De Palma flick starring Angie Dickinson and who is it? Keith Gordon and Michael Caine. So if you want to listen to that Patreon bonus episode, it will be up shortly. That is for a $5 catch-all. Yes, sir. Eric,
I'm going to say you're a misspeak on A Long Kiss Goodnight.
Yes.
When we got Long Good Friday, I'm like, oh, I've seen this. This is the one with Gina Davis and Samuel Jackson.
Right?
It started with like, oh, wait, no. Oh, yeah, that was Long Kiss Goodnight. So not just you. I had that same mix up.
By the way, look, Bruce Purkey has been in the attic doing his own version of cinematics for the last 2 months. I really think you should throw some extra abuse into Bruce Purkey, and moving forward, instead of getting some really interesting movies coming up, we need to go back to the director spotlights. But this is what I mean, Eric Holmes. Future episodes, we won't give our CinemAddicts listeners new movies. We're going to punish you too, CinemAddicts listeners. We're just going to spotlight maybe who directed Iron Eagle, John Glenn or Ian Glenn, one of those. We're going to spotlight those movies, right? We're going to do Iron Eagle, maybe Billy Drago movies. You mentioned Billy Drago on the Patreon feed. Maybe some really interesting. What other director spotlight should we do?
The one I want to do next is
Uwe Boll.
Uwe Boll. Because after watching, I went on an Uwe Boll tear after watching First Shift. And who knows, maybe this is a segue.
What are you doing?
Maybe this is a segue into First Shift, but
okay, I'll join you for next week. Maybe after CinemAddicts, we'll do like a little bit of an Uwe Boll retro. What movies do you recommend that I watch, and more importantly, CinemAddicts listeners watch for next week? Give us a couple of movies.
So we got obviously First Shift, which we'll talk about here shortly.
Yes, within minutes.
We got Tunnel Rats.
Okay,
which turned out pretty good. I did not watch Attack on Darfur yet. I know that was one that that was the main one that he of his movies that he really liked. I have not watched that one yet, but
how dare
damn it, the Wall Street one, Attack on Wall Street.
Attack on Wall Street. I know he's an awesome guy, right? Is he not? He was great with you. He's great with me. Gave you over 20 minutes. Gave me almost 20 minutes.
Oh yeah,
good guy.
Obviously, he has his reputation for being the worst director ever.
And he boxed a critic. He actually fought a critic, like literally boxed them.
Boxed a couple of them. Oh
my goodness! Thank God. I would have lost.
Assault on Wall Street. That was
Assault on Wall Street. Yeah.
But that one turned out. And going back and watching his his reputation, I think, came from not his first movies, but his first movies that people started knowing him from, which was
Blood Rain.
House of the Dead.
Alone in the Dark.
Alone in the Dark, and then later Blood Rain kind of got similar treatment.
The dungeon, those dungeon siege movies.
I didn't watch the dungeon siege movies, but either way, he got a really bad reputation on those and was known as the worst director ever.
But let's face it.
But then he comes out with Postal.
Postal, there you go.
And I'm like, oh, okay, this is another Uwe Boll movie. I'll watch it just because I hate myself, I guess. And I watch it and I'm blown away. I'm like, oh my God, this movie's insane. I love this movie so much.
So Eric Holmes with CinemAddicts, we have two trains running. Okay, so apologize for interrupting right now, but we have Bruce Purkey commandeering the respectable version of CinemAddicts where he's trying to cover movies every single week. We love you, Bruce Purkey, even though, did you give him the dog treats, some sausages? He likes sausages?
He's fine. He loves sausages. He always eats the stuff out the middle and leaves the snoss out of it. But
okay, Bruce Purkey, that's disgusting, but you are the respectable version of CinemAddicts. But for the people who are not so respectable, or actually, I will say this: Uwe Boll. We're going to get to First Shift, and we'll tell you how respectable he is. Give us two Uwe Boll movies that our CinemAddicts listeners should watch, because you and I are going to talk about it next week. Just two.
Oh, I want to do Attack on
Darfur.
I want to do Darfur because I haven't seen that one, and he really likes that, so I want to see what that one's on.
Okay, so we'll do that.
And I did see Assault. I did see Assault on Wall Street.
What would you recommend?
Assault on Wall Street.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that movie's kind of falling down, or what was it? John Q. Was that the one with Denzel where his kid's got a heart attack and can't get health insurance or whatever? So
who else starred in that? You know who else starred in that movie?
I forget who.
Anne Heche.
There you go.
You know who interviewed Anne Heche? Who's the most?
Did you interview?
Who's the biggest jerk in CinemAddicts who always talks about himself? Who interviewed Anne Heche?
I didn't interview Anne Heche.
Very good, Eric Holmes. I did. And I used to, back in the day when it was.
Oh, rest in peace, by the way. She died a couple years ago.
Rest in peace, Anne Heche. So I used to do this sort of back and forth with this fellow female journalist, and I used to joke how would be her boy. I joked at the John Q press junket to Anne Heche because I was making some snide remarks while this female journalist was actually asking Anne Heche a question about being pregnant or something, and then I made some snide remark. And that it wasn't offensive, okay? It was just...
It wasn't like the Steenburgen comment.
Right, we're going to get to that in a second.
No, we're not. That's on Patreon.
That's on Patreon. But for the Anne Heche interview, when her name's Melanie, and she was saying about being pregnant and everything, not Melanie was being pregnant, but she was asking about pregnancy stuff, and I was just giving her a smirk. And Melanie turned to me and she told me to shut up in front of Anne Heche. And then Anne Heche was going, "What's going on?" And then I said, "We're dating." And then I said, "We're dating." And then that female journalist just laughed and she told me to shut up again. And we were just joking. So that was some really friendly banter. At the end of the Anne Heche interview, I said another remark to Melanie, the journalist, and she told me to shut up again. And then Anne, God bless her soul, period. She looked at Melanie and she looked at me and she says, "No, he's cute." So Anne Heche.
There you go.
A little love for Anne Heche. We love Anne, and she was a great actress. Love Anne Heche. Going back to Mary Steenburgen, CinemAddicts listeners.
That's Greg. You already messed up once and said this on the Patreon. You should not say this in public.
This is a Patreon secret thing. So for your Patreon members, I mentioned a Mary Steenburgen question I did ask, which will not go on our normal feed. That's a personal thing. So if you want to get the details on that, you have to be a Patreon member. And Patreon members,
I can't believe you just said it like this is cool. Like, oh, what are you doing?
And Patreon members, we love you. Thank you for supporting me, Anderson, Bruce Purkey, Eric Holmes on CinemAddicts. But if you listen to my comments regarding a past interview I did with Steenburgen, please close that lid, shut the trap, keep everything secret and walled into Patreon. So that is like our little Patreon plug for our Patreon this month. And let's get to our movie reviews. Am I missing something, Eric Holmes, before we dive into things?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
This is like late, and I was just telling you just before we started, but I just saw that Alan Maxon is involved in the new VHS Beyond. And I think so Alan Maxon, we've had him on the show before. He's the director of Alien Planet. It was a really super low budget movie, but he's a cool guy. And we've seen a couple of the VHS series movies, and they've been largely pretty good. I think the worst one was still enjoyable. So yeah, excited for him. And he's a cool guy, and happy to see it. Hopefully we'll hear more about it by next week. Right now, this is just something I saw him post something on Facebook, like literally like 5 seconds before we started.
Okay, so you've interviewed, like you said, you've interviewed Alan Maxon. For people not in the know, Alien Planet, you described it as low budget. That does not mean you did not love the movie. I think, if I recall, you did love Alien Planet. What makes it stand out? Why should people see it before we get to our regular schedule?
I mean, Alan Maxon is like one of those guys, like he's likes genre movies. I think me and him kind of have a similar sort of taste in movies. And so he kind of made this kind of silly B movie thing, and he sprinkles a little extra on it, but for the most part he fully embraces that kind of Guar aesthetic or a trauma aesthetic. And it's just fun. Kind of he hates when people say this, but I mean the easiest way to describe it is it's kind of a Enemy Mine sort of riff. You know, it's not that exactly, but I mean that's two alien species that don't like each other stranded on a planet together. But yeah, Alien Planet's good stuff. 3.7 on IMDb, which, you know what?
Those people on IMDb, right?
You know what? For a movie like Alien Planet, I see that as a badge of honor. If I made Alien Planet and everyone gave it like 1 star, I'd be like, yeah, right, 1 star. I did my part. But yeah, Alien Planet's good. It's fun. And all the people making it are good people, had fun making it. And that comes through when you watch it.
Okay, now
I'm excited to see VHS Beyond and see what Alan Maxon does in that as well.
It'll be interesting. Let's see if we can get screener links for that VHS Beyond, if that's the one that you were talking about. So now let us get to the big movie of the week. That movie being the sci-fi film Slingshot. Why is it so big? Well, it stars Casey Affleck, Lawrence Fishburne, Tamara Capone. You might know him from, what is that? The Good Guys or The Good Boy? The Prime Video thing with all the superheroes. So they're called Soups.
The Boys, I think.
The Boys. Thank you, Eric Holmes.
The Boys.
Excellent. The Boys. My bad on that. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. And Emily Beecham. Slingshot is in theaters nationwide this Friday. Eric Holmes, I'm so tired of speaking or talking and blabbing. What is Slingshot about, and your thoughts on this movie?
So Slingshot's kind of, I guess it's a crew of 3 that's trying to get to Titan, the Saturn's moon. And they want to, I'm not exactly sure what they're going there for some environmental reason, like to collect methane or do something on Titan to bring back to Earth so they can solve something. It's kind of a MacGuffin, really, because then the slingshot, the reason why it's called Slingshot is to get there, they need gravity assist and air quote slingshot off Jupiter's gravity to get to Saturn. And then once the slingshot happens, that's when Casey Affleck plays John. He once the slingshot happens, that's kind of when things start going a little weird for him. It's he's having basically a mental breakdown, and they do a lot of flashbacks to him and his wife at home. There's Lawrence Fishburne. He's Captain Frank.
His girlfriend.
Girlfriend. All right.
Yeah. Same thing. I mean, same kind of thing within context. Colleague.
Significant other.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
But anyway, it was him and Tomer Capone.
Yeah.
Played Nash. And so they all have like issues, especially like coming up on the slingshot, because the ship is kind of, there's something not right with the ship. And Nash doesn't want to do the slingshot. He wants to abort the mission because he doesn't think that the ship will withstand that. I don't know. I don't know how the science works on that. I'm not familiar. Like I'm familiar with what a slingshot is and how it works, but I don't know the physics of a ship or whatever. But it doesn't matter because the ship's kind of starting to break down. But they do the slingshot, everything's fine. As far as the ship is concerned, things are not fine with the crew and specifically with Casey Affleck's sanity. And then it becomes kind of
Twilight Zone episode, sort of.
I want to compare it to Event Horizon,
Solaris.
but it definitely Solaris. And I do want to compare it to Event Horizon, but Event Horizon has like supernatural stuff in it. This doesn't go there, but it has that same kind of. So this isn't The Martian. This isn't 2001: Space Odyssey. This is more Ad Astra or Spaceman. Yeah, it's more like it's more in that area. And I'm not a big fan of Ad Astra. Not a big fan of Spaceman. I'm more of the Martian, 2001. I don't
Not a fan of Solaris.
But
Not a fan of Solaris either. That type of movie.
Solaris was
either version.
This is better than Solaris. Both versions.
Okay. So you interviewed Mikael Hafstrom, and he's also the director of a movie called 1408. I think it was John Cusack who starred in that movie.
You know what?
I love that movie.
This movie had, 1408. This movie's 1408 in space, pretty much.
Okay.
Like it has a lot of similar DNA between the two, and makes sense because the same filmmaker.
There's a couple of things I did want to credit Slingshot. First of all, the movie's a sci-fi film, but with a low budget, they made do with what they could. The money goes to, I'm assuming, Casey Affleck and Lawrence Fishburne and the actors, because ultimately most of this movie is almost like a stage play. They're in that enclosed location. Of course, there are the flashbacks like Eric was talking about to Casey Affleck's character and his relationship with that woman. I understand why Hafstrom made the film. I understand the ambition to make an indie movie with this seemingly large scale type of narrative. Slingshot, it just did not work for me on any base level. I love both Casey Affleck, Lawrence Fishburne, and I'll be honest, this was a total movies rated R, 108 minutes. This felt like 108 minutes to me felt like 801 minutes. Eric, please save me from this. Tell me something good. Tell our listeners why they should see this in theaters, because this was, I put on our Google Doc, OMFG family show. WTF was this? OMFG WTF.
That was Bruce that wrote that.
Okay, sorry, but please say something good or insightful.
Again, this isn't my type of movie. Like when I do space movies, I like the hard sci-fi, like the stuff like The Martian, or like stuff where if I want to watch a movie about Slingshot, I want to know all the nuts and bolts about Slingshot. But I realized pretty quickly that's not what this movie is. This movie is a psychological drama of Casey Affleck just unraveling.
Eric, and you mentioned drama. Sorry. So let's just say drama. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a sequence. Beau Bridges, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but
Beau Bridges
and Casey Affleck in Dreamin' Wild.
Yeah.
And they're just having their heart-to-heart, father-to-son talk to drama. Do you get a little bit, does your mind go someplace else because these are two people just really going to a real place? Did you feel that moment, or if you remember that moment where they're talking about in Dreamin' Wild?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Dreamin' Wild.
Yeah. Casey Affleck, Beau Bridges, well acted, well written, human drama.
But if you did if Dreamin' Wild was exactly as it is now, except in space, I would be less interested because I want to know how all the mechanics work over here and how is the spaceships coming together.
That's great on the rebuttal. So I didn't mean the stuff on the spaceship. Did any of the stuff in the flashbacks with Casey Affleck, his character, and that woman, their love story, did any of that resonate with you? Did you feel anything?
Yeah, mostly frustration because okay. Not of the movie, but of their relationship.
Oh God! Okay.
Because it seems like the relationship was falling apart because he's deciding to go on this mission,
right?
And then that's like the tension that's kind of pulling the relationship apart.
Not your type of movie, Eric, but did this movie work for you then? Because
once I got into its kind of rhythm, I kind of rolled with it.
Okay.
Because when I first started watching, I'm like, cool space movie with Casey Affleck. Let's see what this is about. And I thought I was getting into something completely different than what it was. Once I realized, oh, this is what this is. Okay, I'll adjust expectations to match match the movie. And then I was able to enjoy it for what it was.
Did you like the ending without giving too much away? What's the ending? Did it work? Did it stick the landing? Did it slingshot the landing?
The ending was a bit of a stretch. Oddly enough, the stuff that happens is really similar to a part in Project Hail Mary.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually another point against this, because like there's certain things about this that did remind me of like certain aspects of Project Hail Mary. And I want to watch Project Hail Mary so bad, but it's not even made yet. But yeah, I think this movie's, unfortunately, from my perspective, it is fighting against what my own expectations are, and fighting against what my own what I gravitate towards already.
Yes.
And the movie's not trying to be that, so it's hard to. I can't really fault it for that. Oh, you didn't make the movie I wanted. That'd be selfish on my part. That said, what they were going for, and we would have to get into spoilers to get like really deep into it, which I don't think we are, but I think there's a couple parts that are kind of silly, maybe could have been reworked a little bit, but for what it was, it was fine. I think this movie will have its fans, but it'll certainly have its detractors as well, as we're about to hear from Greg.
Okay, no, Slingshot. It hits theaters August 30th. Eric Holmes, you've given your final thoughts. What is your rating on Slingshot?
I kind of want to go with 3 stars on this.
Okay.
I'm between.
Good. That's a mild recommend.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hate it. I liked it. It was like, for the budget that they shot it, like, this thing is clean, looks great. Probably could use a little tweak on the script, but otherwise not terrible.
Yeah.
But I feel I might be in a minority there. We will see.
Well, speaking as a minority myself, I'm gonna say this. Stupid joke. Stupid dad joke.
No, that's a great segue.
No, it's a horrible segue. I'm a horrible human being. Slingshot listeners, CinemAddicts listeners, me, Eric, and Bruce, Eric Holmes, Bruce. I am so pissed with Slingshot that I called Eric Holmes Eric. That's how flustered I am with Slingshot. Me, Eric Holmes,
Eric
Bruce,
Clayton Holmes, you get in here right now.
Me, Eric Holmes, and Bruce Purkey, and Anderson Cowan's his spirit or his presence around. We try to give you guys good movies opening on a Friday, indie-driven films mainly, but we also try to detract you from movies. At least Eric has 3 stars as a mild recommendations. He said a couple of good points about Slingshot, even though it's not his type of movie. Simple for me. Slingshot, 1 star, just because I like seeing Casey Affleck and Lawrence Fishburne continue to get jobs. I really like them as people. I mean, as actors, I don't know them as people. 1 star, generous 1 star for me for Slingshot.
What? That's actually the best. That's actually the best rating you can give for this movie, because the people that listen to us anytime. I would like to know how many people listen, and when Greg gives a movie 1 star, do you just think, well, now I have to see that? When 4-star Greg gives a movie 1 star,
right? And
I may love it, I may hate it, but I am curious as hell what a 1-star Greg movie looks like.
Okay, so 1 star Greg, I love it. 1 star for me for Slingshot, and 3 stars from Eric Holmes. So here's
what's the 1 star though? Well,
just because I like Casey Affleck and Lawrence Fishburne. It's good to see them, and
it's not that bad though.
What?
It's not that.
Slingshot.
Sell me on why Slingshot is a 1-star movie, because I'm not buying it.
Hey, Eric, Bruce, can you get out of the attic? Can you help me here?
Pipe down. You'll have your word later.
It's just it's a terrible film. First of all, there's nothing. It's one movie. How many minutes is it again?
Okay,
yeah, 108.
Greg, let me set the table for you a bit. The filmmakers are listening to you right now, and you just told them their movie is 1 star.
Yes.
Now give them honest critique
without the jokes.
Yeah, like I didn't like the movie, and here's why. Something actionable that they can take and then make the next movie better.
There is not 1 single second of Slingshot that I found, and I know the plot line is fantastical. Not 1 second of this movie spoke to me. The love story in flashback was a complete waste of my time, and it's not that I don't believe in love, or it just really.
I mean, you don't, but move on.
I don't. Poorly executed. There is a sequence in this. How many times do they have to sleep in that sleeping chamber for 8 months. Let's just say if I had a
Nice.
choice, Sleeping Chamber for 8 or 9 months or to see Slingshot again, I don't know. It might be a definite decision. It's considering my family that I don't know if I would possibly go into suspended animation or deep sleep for 8 months rather than watch this movie again. Okay, that was a jokey thing,
I mean,
but it's just
if I'm on a spaceship on an 8-month mission with limited crew, I'm absolutely going in the sleep pod the entire time.
yeah.
Wake me up when the thing's about to crash into something so I can steer it away. Otherwise, keep me in here.
Thank you, Eric. That was a very good question to me, but yes, poorly executed. The acting was fine. It was just a poorly written movie, and I didn't like the way it was. I just didn't like anything about this movie
So
whatsoever.
none of the
It was a
critique
slog.
actionable though, is what
It's not actionable, but I did give it 1 star.
Yeah.
So I could have given it 0 stars. See, the mean part of me is coming out. So I like that. Now, hopefully things work out a little bit better with this movie from Shout Studios called The Wasp. It is a thriller about 2 former friends in school. They're played by Naomi Harris and Natalie Dormer. You've seen Naomi Harris in a whole bunch of movies, as well as Natalie Dormer. You know Dormer from her work in Game of Thrones. Psychological thriller. They're 2 estranged friends who reunite over tea, only to unveil a dangerous and deceptive plot that will irrevocably alter their lives. The Naomi Harris character basically wants Natalie Dormer's character to murder her husband. Sort of like this murder plot situation in this thriller. And it's a psychological thriller that runs 96 minutes. It's directed by Guillen Morales, and the screenwriter is Morgan Lloyd Malcolm. I will say this before Eric gets into the review. It has some really great, showy, excellent performances from Naomi Harris and Natalie Dormer. If you want to see both these actresses in their element, The Wasp on the base level is worth a watch. Eric Holmes, your thoughts on The Wasp?
Yes, I love this movie a lot. You got the one character that wants to. Now, this does have one tiny thing similar to what I had a problem with in Slingshot, but I think this one kind of came together a little better. And I really want to do spoilers on this, but we can't. But it's hey, a friend from high school, a friend from high school, I'm going to hire you to help kill my husband because we haven't connected in a long time, and you wouldn't be someone the cops would go to. And then as the murder things happen, things go wrong. But in this, things go wrong not in a way that you might expect. And I think that's one of the great things about The Wasp is they keep feeding you a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And then and they do flashbacks in this with them as friends way back in the day. And at first it seems like kind of a little ancillary, but as the flashbacks go throughout the movie, in fact, this movie's like a lot like Slingshot in a lot of ways.
It is.
But as
It really
the
is.
flashbacks go on, you get more information of the characters, and that informs what's going on in the present.
Yes.
And so you start learning. I'm going to stop talking there, but yeah, the Wasp is really good. It's I don't want to give away too much because this movie kind of doles out information in such a way that while I'm watching it, there weren't like large twists, but you just reveal certain information about a character that's like, oh, okay, yeah. Now the way they're kind of acting towards each other makes a lot more sense.
I will say this. I'm not saying this movie has false advertising, but there will be people who will not like The Wasp for one certain reason. It is billed as a psychological thriller, and there are elements to it, but don't expect a Brian De Palma or an Alfred Hitchcock type suspense psychological thriller, which hangs its hat on really cool editing, really great visuals.
Yeah, this one leans more on comedy, I think.
This one leans
or like a lighter feel to it.
It has a lighter feel to it, but it's also more of a showcase for the acting, just the acting
Definitely
acumen. Of Harris and Dormer. Naomi Harris plays Heather, and Natalie Dormer plays Carla. They're adults now, both different walks of life as far as socioeconomic path. Heather is really well off. Carla is not. She is a working mother who has several kids. She has a baby on the way, And so their dynamic when they bring up their past and everything, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this movie, a lot of stuff to unpack. Just great acting. But if you do not like these enclosed dramas where people are going at each other verbally and they're talking about their past lives, it's very expositional. You might not like The Wasp. I only say that because I want to warn you guys. It's not a genre-fied thriller, but it's just a really well done film. Like just great performances, and I hope more people get to see The Wasp. The wind up to me, are you cool with the wind up for The Wasp, the way it ended?
Oh,
Yeah.
for like a spoiler?
No, not a spoiler, but did you like the way it ended? Did it disappoint you, the ending? Were you over?
I would say it doesn't stick the landing. There are aspects of it that I thought was really, really interesting and clever, but there was like one tiny thing where I was like, that doesn't track. But that's like, like flicking a booger on the Mona Lisa. It's still the Mona Lisa. There's just a little booger up there that maybe you don't look at.
That is a visual, Eric, but I will agree with you. The ending didn't completely stick the landing, but there's such great performances that I'm going to have to give The Wasp 4 out of 5 stars. Just a really well done psychological thriller, yes, to a point, but it's more of a drama about a lot of things. 96 minutes, I definitely recommend The Wasp with that caveat of a lot of it is a stagey drama kind of thing. Eric Holmes, your final thoughts and rating for
I will give
Wasp.
4.5 on this. I think if this movie would have stuck the landing, this would have been a 6.9, easy. It was already in 6.9 territory as I'm watching it, and it just kept getting closer and closer there. And then the ending just didn't quite stick. But the ending's not terrible. It's just, just again, temper expectations. Enjoy The Wasp. Enjoy all the reveals you get throughout. Just know the ending gets a little. It's not bad. It's not bad. It just doesn't. It's not as great as the rest of the movie. Yes. I think like with some, again with to bring up Slingshot again. I think maybe had the ending been a little different, maybe reactions might have been better on it.
Yeah.
Do you think if the ending of Slingshot really nailed it, it'd be like, I forgive everything else. It's a 5-star movie.
I would have given it at least 1.01 stars. I mean, it would have been.
All right. Maybe a bad example.
No. I'm kidding.
But I think Wasp is, I think Wasp is stronger in the sense that it can kind of withstand that little hiccup at the end where Slingshot may not.
Okay, so that is 4.5 stars for Eric Holmes for The Wasp, and I gave it 4 stars. It's in theaters August 30th via Shot Studios. Highly recommended. And look, after watching this, Eric, I'm sure you want to see more of Naomi Harris and Natalie Dormer in movies. They're so good. It's sort of a co-lead, right? Co-lead role in The Wasp.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-hander. It's like, who's the main character? Like, we could get into who, but again, spoilers.
All right, again, spoilers. All right, that is it for The Wasp. Next up is an Uwe Ball movie called First Shift. This might be our quickest review because
we buried the lead with this one.
Well, that's all right. But look, it's a buddy cop movie, and it centers on a cop from New York who has to welcome a new cop, and she's from, I think she just transferred from, or she was just living over somewhere in Atlanta or something, and she's new to the city. Or actually, not new to the city. She's new to the police force. So it's the first shift for her, and it's how he tries to help her out through their first shift. And you see,
does he though?
But does he though? That's the big question, because there's a lot of things that go on in this buddy cop movie. But it's one of these things where first shift, you've seen these movies a million times before. Uwe Ball, who also wrote the script, knows this, but he puts his entire Uwe Ball spin on it. Eric Holmes, your thoughts on First Shift?
I love this movie. I'm going to start with what I didn't like.
Okay.
Because that list is very short.
Okay.
I did not like the beginning. I like say the first.
Well, when he's like
15.
getting up and going through.
Yeah, it does the thing train. Where like you wake up, brush your teeth, get ready for work, do all this stuff. I'm like,
wow.
If this movie started with like just a quick walking in, hey, Deo, we got your new partner. I don't need a partner. Okay, he's a curmudgeon. We get it. And then you get Kristen Renton right in there. Hey, I'm Angela. I'm your new partner. Like, if they would have started the movie right there, perfection. is what this movie is. Now, Uwe Boll's movie Postal, obviously love that because it's just insane. This movie is not that at all. This movie is totally a buddy cop movie. But what I love about this is that Deo and Angela's kind of dynamic is very similar to Dr. Cox and JD in Scrubs. You got the little, I want to do good. I'm a doctor, yay. And then the other person like, I've been at this a long time. They got the, one person begging for the other's affection and the other person just constantly pushing away. It's just a fun dynamic. And I think Gino and Kristen, their chemistry is great in this.
You want to see more. You want to see more.
Yes.
You want to see second shift. They're so good together.
And I guess that might be like kind of the problem with the first 10, 15 minutes is it's just Gina, or it's just Deo by himself, doing day stuff. Like if we get to Angela faster, because Deo's pretty good by himself and Angela's pretty good by herself, but together they're like better than the sum of their parts.
In my opinion, that's such a minor complaint. I guess that you really love the movie. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, that you must really love the movie because that little minor complaint you have is the first 7 to 8 minutes.
But see, that's 15 minutes that we didn't get Angela.
That's good. That's good. All right. I was fine with him just waking up and wherever he's living, Queens or.
But I had to start with what I didn't like about it because that's literally the only thing. Everything else I love. Once you get Deo and Angela together, just watching them riff off each other. There's a little bit of, because this is the first shift, this all takes place in a day, and there's a little bit of the case that they're going on, the stuff, going on in the underbelly that they'll eventually get to solve and deal with. And that stuff's interesting on its own.
Oh, look,
there was one particular scene in
I think you're going to mention
in a room.
Yes.
Someone walks in. I was like, oh, jeez.
Oh, well, you were mentioning that, but Eric was mentioning so Eric interviewed Uwe Boll, and Boll was saying that if you, I don't know if I put it up on our CinemAddicts podcast feed, the interview already. So check it out. Well, he mentions that First Shift is strung together from a whole bunch of ideas that he wrote about maybe from years on end, and he just put them together into this cop movie. So what that means is there are scenes in First Shift. There is specifically one scene regarding a criminal element that might be doing harm to a father and son that's completely done out. I mean, it's within the world of First Shift, but Uwe, I think he just has, this is an 8 to 10 minute sequence, which has seemingly nothing to do with those two cops. And it's just a standalone scene, and it's really well done. So there's some really incongruent elements of First Shift, which makes it really work for me and makes it stand out because I loved all of the little stories, even outside the cops in First Shift, and that's why I really enjoyed this movie. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, this, like between this and Attack on Wall Street or Assault on Wall Street, Tunnel Rats, like I'm kind of, and he's been retired for a little bit and then came back. So I think this is his second movie. And if this is what he's got going forward, I'm all in for the Uwe. However, I do know that he does have his reputation, and that reputation has been going on for a long time. So it's hard for people to process in their brain, oh my God, Uwe made a great movie. Go into First Shift with your expectations of what you already think of Uwe Boll, and then maybe you might come out on the other side going, oh, damn, that was pretty good. Like go in thinking First Shift is going to be like, oh, this is going to be a piece of crap. This is going to be a 1-star movie. And then watch First Shift and then just feel your brain as it starts to mold going, I really like this. What's happening? I really like this movie.
Well, Eric, and here's the thing. I'm going to assume you're going to say the same thing, but we can watch a lot of cop movies that are budgeted higher scale. Okay. And we'll watch these higher scale cop movies on our various streaming platforms. We may enjoy them, but they're going to end up being a wash because one cop film looks like the other. They have the same kind of high-end production values and big stars, et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, we will put all of these big budget cop dramas or cop action thrillers, whatever, in a big box, try to mix them up. And when we open it, we can't tell one from the freaking other. And I think what makes Uwe Boll's First Shift, interesting, is it's not big budget and it's from his singular POV, not by a committee of people, not by a think tank or whatever. It just seems extremely original and singular within the cop genre. So that's why I'm pretty high on First Shift.
And in a world where we got a Beverly Hills Cop 14 came out, and Bad Boys 37 came out,
and we'll watch those.
This one's better. This one's better than all those.
Wow, love it, Eric Holmes. First Shift for me, 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed the chemistry with Gino Anthony. I apologize, Pesci, the last name, and Kristen Rentone. I hope there is a sequel called Second Shift, maybe Third Shift, Fourth Shift, because I would love to see the continuing adventures of detectives Deo and Angela. Eric Holmes, final thoughts and ratings on First Shift.
I already gave my thoughts. I love this movie. I don't want to go 5 stars, but I don't want to oversell. I'll go 4.5, but this will probably go up for me. But I want to make a quick pitch.
I know why you're going to say 4.5. The reason why you're saying 4.5 is not just because it's Uwe Ball. I'm assuming if you had this on DVD or streaming, if it was on streaming, you'd watch it again. It's a highly.
I have watched it again. I watched it 3 times already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just that I think it's that first 10 minutes. Like, okay. Get Angela in there earlier. Get Angela in that movie earlier, and then this is a 5-star movie. But I do want to make a pitch for Second Shift. Second Shift is together. The Third Shift is a crossover with Third Shift and Final Shot. So the stuff that Scott Adkins is doing goes into Deo and Angela's world, and then they all combine together to take down the mastermind of whoever Scott Adkins is going after.
That's very good. I love it. Really good. Really good. Really good. That's a really good.
But yeah, check out First Shift. Go in with whatever expectations you have of Uwe Boll. I think you would be pleasantly surprised with this.
And I apologize if you. So tell me what you look. Let me look right here. I'm looking where First Shift is available. It is in select theaters and on demand Friday, August 30th. Produced, written, and directed by Uwe Ball, starring Gino Anthony Pesci, Kristen Rentone, Gary Pastore, and James McMenamin. And yeah, very, very from Quiver Distribution. It is not rated. Why not? It's an Uwe Ball film. So 4.5 stars.
I just rated it.
You just rated it, exactly. 4.5 stars from both of us. And if you do not like First Shift, come at me and Eric. Let's see what you think of those movies, and tell us what you think of more Ball films, because we're going to get to it next week with Attack on Darfur. And what was the other?
I will say, whatever plot hole anyone wants to go in and nitpick on First Shift, I will give 3 of them in Beverly Hills Cop or.
Here we go.
I will give 10 of them for each one you give them First Shift. I will give 10 of them in any Bad Boys movie.
Oh, wow. Okay. Eric gets on the offensive. He is defending his.
So what I'm getting at, if you don't like the movie, fair enough. If you're just getting a little nitpick little plot things, keep in mind what genre this is.
Okay. That is very good, Eric Holmes. Before we get to Eric Holmes' recommendation, let me just say a couple things about City of Dreams. This is a very interesting movie, and it centers on a kid played by Ari Lopez. He is smuggled into Los Angeles to become a worker at a textile situation, but it's human trafficking set in Los Angeles, and it is very tough to watch this young kid's journey into trying to survive. It's this kid, how old is he? He could probably be just in his early teens, and he has dreams of becoming a soccer player, but he realizes those dreams of becoming a soccer player or football player, however you want to pronounce that sport, it's not his city of dreams. Los Angeles is his city of nightmares, because he gets into this world, and he along with other people in this small little section where they work and they sew clothes, they are being exploited in the downtown Los Angeles area. The movie is also co-starring Renata Vaca, and it's directed and written by Mohit Ramchandani. Currently on IMDb, 8.3 out of 10. I haven't checked it out on Rotten Tomatoes yet, but it's a sort of a social drama, really well filmed. Our buddy Jason Patric, we loved you here. You missed out because Jason Patric, he plays an LA cop, an LA detective in this movie. You would have enjoyed his work. And
this will not be the last time we hear Jason Patric this episode.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, here's I'm just telling you, this is a Jason Patrick episode. I mean, movie that you missed, Eric. I think I'm not going to criticize you for that because I know because you and I both love Jason Patrick.
Yes.
Hopefully our mission before you and I respectively leave the earth, we will see pretty much all of Jason Patrick's film because we love him so much.
Or at least we'll just watch Rush like a ton of times.
Right. Well, for you, it'll be Rush. For me, it'll be something like The Beast. You love The Beast too, right?
Oh, yeah. The Beast is great.
The Beast is so amazing. But so City of Dreams is also amazing because Jason Patrick's really good in this. The directing's really fine. And you really get into the world of the character that Jesus, the character that the young boy, the young teenager, Ari Lopez plays. And Renata Vaca is also starring in this movie. It's currently 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. Just a really well done film. It's a hard watch because you see Jesus really go through the nightmare of being trafficked, but it's a really well done movie. I interviewed Renata Vaca, Ari Lopez, and the filmmaker about this movie, and I asked them, there's this one great, it looks like a oneer. You mentioned One Shot. It looks like a oneer set in the fashion district of downtown Los Angeles, and he talks about how he shot that sequence. There's some really great visual moments in City of Dreams, really good performances, solid film all around, and at times, though it's completely dark, there are some uplifting moments as well. It is inspired by true events in theaters Friday, August 30th, and hopefully Ari Lopez will have a very promising career. He's excellent. His character Jesus is mute, so a lot of the story of City of Dreams is told through his eyes and through his body language. And Renata Vaca, as one of his fellow colleagues or one of the other people who is being trafficked, she's also memorable in the movie. And the director, what's interesting is you haven't seen my interview with him yet, Eric, but Mohit Ramchandani, I asked him just sort of one of his inspirations, he said in his interview, was getting to know Irving Kershner, the director of Empire Strikes Back. So that director, when he was a kid, actually influenced him to become a filmmaker.
Didn't he do Wyatt Earp also?
I don't know if he did Irving Kershner, he had a long career. I just looked at his IMDb this morning. Possibly you're correct, but definitely the director of The Empire Strikes Back. And he directed, you mentioned James Bond and Pierce Brosnan over at our Patreon episode. He also directed the Sean Connery James Bond movie, Never Say Never Again. That's Irving Kershner, and how he was sort of an inspiration for Mohit Ramchandani. Ramchandani is a very interesting filmmaker as well. He's done a great job with City of Dreams. My rating for City of Dreams is 4 stars out of 5. Again, Friday, August 30th. We're done with our features. Let's get to our recommendations.
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
I don't believe Irving Kershner did. I think that was Lawrence Kasdan that did Wyatt Earp.
Oh, yeah.
Empire Strikes Back. There lies the confusion and thing.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, Wyatt Earp's Lawrence Kasdan. I saw that in theaters. Love that movie. Should have mentioned that when you said Wyatt Earp. I was thinking maybe it might have been a different version of Wyatt Earp. But Eric Holmes, we're going to end the show right now with your recommendations. Let's hear them.
Well, first things first. First Shift is 6.9.
We changed
on IMDb.
Oh, okay.
No, it's 6.9 on IMDb. So if you don't believe me, believe IMDb, because 6.9 on IMDb, as we all know, is a perfect score.
Yes. Are you and I going to die on the First Shift hill?
I will get this is a family show. I can't say what's going to happen to me.
Okay. Now, will you die on the hill of the Crow?
Well, you know what? We already buried the lead with First Shift. Let's bury that lead because I'm going to start off with Don't Turn Your Back on Friday Night.
Yes.
It's a music doc. It's produced by Tom Morello, and it's Ike Riley. And he's a singer-songwriter, and you basically just follow him and through kind of his career. You know, he's had sort of a moderate success. The music's really good. This is kind of like most documentaries where, like, if you're not into the music or the person that they're following, you're probably not going to get much of it. But if you like Ike Riley's music and it's really good, so I don't know why you wouldn't. But if you like his music, this is going to be a pretty easy watch.
Well, how about Ike Riley? Well, okay, if you could actually meet halfway, let's just say the person who's watching the documentary, can they enjoy the documentary if they're okay with the music, but are interested in Ike Riley life, right? The who he is, his persona.
This has kind of what was it? The documentary about Anvil.
Okay.
This is kind of that.
Anvil? Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of that. It's this guy's so good. Why isn't he more popular is, I guess, the main thrust of the documentary. But then you get to see stuff, kind of at times ventures into sort of VH1 storytellers, where like you'll get to learn a bit about his past, and then know where the lyrics to some of his songs came from. And some of
Gotcha.
those hit. Some of the because some of his songs like sound kind of poppy or like catchy. And then when you learn the backstory of where that lyric came from, all of a sudden that lyric that he's singing hits a lot harder. It's like, oh damn, I thought that was like a fun upbeat song, but that really hits you in the heart.
Very
And
good.
so there's a bunch of stuff like that in this. I think I can't imagine someone like Anderson, like obviously hates music docs. I can't imagine that this would be the one that turns him around. But Brian, on the other hand, loves music docs, and this would be like catnip for him. So like, if you're the music doc person, absolutely watch this. If you're a fan of Ike Riley and you know who he is, obviously this is a no-brainer. You probably already watched it. And just yeah, I would say stay away from this if you absolutely hate music docs. Otherwise, this is a pretty good one, and I kind of like his journey throughout the documentary, like stuff like when COVID happened and he couldn't play live shows anymore, like how he got around that. There's we talked earlier about a Casey Affleck movie,
Dreaming
Bo
Wild.
Bridges, Dreaming Wild.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scenes dealing with Ike Riley and his family that kind of mirrors
Oh,
what
very
you
cool.
might have seen in Dreaming Wild.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of really like, people say like bring your family in. It's like, oh, that's nepotism. But like in stuff like this, it's like, no, that's who you would do it with. Those are the people you connect with. Those are the people you love. Those are the people you want to work with. So yeah, it gets real sweet, gets real deep, and it's just a good documentary. I'd probably go 3.5 on this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little better than average, but like again, if you're into movie docs, this is probably actually going to be a 4.5 for you. If you hate movie docs, it's probably going to be a 2.5 for you. So we'll just split down the middle and call it 3.5.
I really want to see actually Don't Turn Your Back on Friday night via Gravitas Ventures. It hits iTunes, Amazon, and YouTube and all TVOD platforms on August 27th, 2024, which means we're recording this on August 28th. So it just hit it on this week on Tuesday. So music doc fans, go check out Don't Turn Your Back on Friday night, 3.5 stars.
Don't turn your back on that documentary.
Yes, and that's from Eric Holmes, who consistently buries the lead in this. Yes.
Next movie I'm going to talk about.
No, you got to talk about The Crow, best film of the year, 2000.
Yeah, no, that lead's buried. We're going to talk about Strange Darling.
Oh, it's a Strange Darling. This is a movie with Kyle
Gallner and Willa Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Willa Fitzgerald plays the lady. Kyle Gallner plays the demon. And it opens up with the demon chasing the lady. Lady's running away. And then you see her in a car and you see the demon in the car. And then one point, the demon just stops. Yeah, he's not driving a car, he's driving a truck. He stops, get out the back, shoots the car. The car goes off the road. And then he goes driving up. She gets out of the car and runs in the woods. He chases after her. And that's pretty much what it is. It's a cat and mouse game. This says it's a thriller in 6 chapters. The part I just described with how the movie opens starts with chapter 3, then goes to chapter 5, then chapter 1, then 2, then 6. I think that's how it goes. But it's basically kind of like, after watching it, I kind of piecing together the how the narrative goes, and that would be interesting. That would be a good movie on its own. But I think having them switch the chapters around kind of gives you because I just set up a chase movie, and that's kind of what it is. But then when you see different chapters, now you have a new context of what's happening, and then you get and so you think you know what's going on, and then they move to an early chapter. And you're like, oh, okay, wait, no, I was off about that. And then they move to a later chapter. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I got to rethink. So the whole time they're moving things around, you constantly have to adjust adjust your parameters of what you think this movie is. And it's really, really good. And mention Jason Patrick does there's like an opening narration of this movie.
He's in this.
His voice is he voices it's like a Star Wars scroll, but as it's scrolling, I'm like, that voice sounds familiar. It was Jason Patrick. And
Guy's a stud.
well, this was on the Patreon episode, but we talked about split diopter. There's a split diopter shot in this. I think there's a couple of them actually. So, Greg, that's for you. Giovanni Ribisi is that's the big thing. He's the cinematographer on this. It looks great. I did, actually.
Yeah, so Giovanni he's a good DP.
I think so. I think like kind of early on, like a lot of the shots kind of call attention to themselves, but that's sort of the style of the movie. So you kind of you gotta let stuff like that go.
How is shot on 35? Did it add to the luster of the movie? Did you think that was good? A good choice with it?
I just kind of sink into the movie. I'm sure it did, but I wasn't like, I wasn't going up there with like one of those diamond viewer things going, ooh, look at the grain, blah, blah, blah. Like, I honestly don't care that much. If it looks cool, then I just kind of leave it at that. But then there's a point with Barbara Hershey and Ed Bigley Jr. They show up.
Wow, what a great cast.
Their part is pretty silly in a pretty great way. Willa Fitzgerald is definitely the star here. Like, it's, she's running away from the demon. Kyle Gallner, he plays a great demon. And I think I'll leave it at that. And enough people have said enough about this. I'm just going to add more praise to it. This movie's great.
Well, I'm assuming you're going to give it Strange Darling 5 stars, right? Is it top of the line type of?
I'll go 6.9 on this. There's no reason not to.
There's really? So
yeah.
It's a perfect thriller to fill in the blank.
Yeah, because like the switching around the narrative seems a bit like a gimmick, but it's a gimmick that works because it's a way to keep the movie it moves great. Oh, and the ending sticks the landing as well. It's not like a huge twist or anything, because by the time it gets to the ending, like everything's kind of already out on the table at that point. But at that point, it's like, well, where does this movie go? And then it does the thing. It's like, oh, good job. Very well done.
Eric, who's the best genre actor we've come across the last several years, in your opinion?
It's besides Scott Adkins.
Off the top?
I mean, there's got to be up there.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. Okay. Since 2020, okay, and 2020 kind of doesn't count because 2020 is the year that Dinner in America says on IMDb, but I think by the time we got to Dinner in America, it was around 2022 or late 2021. So let's just say within the last 4 years. I'm going to read you a whole bunch of his IMDb credits. Dinner in America, 2020. I did not see the 2020 TV series Interrogation or the 2020 movie Ghosts of War or The Catch, which was 2020, or Scream, which was 2022. I have not seen Scream.
Good.
Oh, that was good? Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Now let's get to 2000.
I mean, all the Screams are good. Like even the worst Scream is still pretty damn watchable.
Okay, now let's get to 2022. And I remember we mentioned Dinner in America, a movie all of us loves so much. But starting 2022, what comes around? Remember that sort of, okay, we got Smile. We have Mother May I. We have The Passenger. And now we have Strange Darling. What about that list? I mean, that's pretty, it's hard to beat, in my opinion. I remember loving Smile more than both of you, but still, it's a good genre film. I have not seen Mother May I yet. You and Bruce did see it, but I remember you and I really enjoyed What Comes Around, and all three of us really loved The Passenger. So highly underrated. But Gallner is really up there as a genre filmmaker. Willa Fitzgerald. But you said this is pretty much her film. She
crushes it in this.
Oh, very good. So that's Strange Darling.
In fact, I think in some ways, like, it's good they got Kyle Gallner, because otherwise, if they would have got anyone else, Will Fitzgerald would have just ran circles around him.
Well,
like Kyle Gallner, I think, is the only person that they could like even keep up.
Well, thank you, Eric Holmes, for actually watching this movie in theaters. I was the entitled podcaster who was still throwing a little bit of a hissy fit because none of us received screener links for Strange Darling. Now I understand, because it's been widely praised and widely loved. So eventually I'm going to have to.
Well, I didn't get a screener link for The Crow either, but I went and watched that regardless.
How good is The Crow compared to Strange Darling? It's much better. Did you really bury the lead, or should this movie be buried, Eric Holmes?
Neither. Definitely buried the lead, but the Crow is pretty good. I know a bunch of people are crapping on it, especially Alex Proyas. And look, you know what? If Alex Proyas is going to be a dick, so am I. Rupert Sanders made a Crow movie without killing anyone, so slow your roll a bit. But
okay, wow, Eric.
I just think what Alex. Look, I love the Crow. I love Brandon Lee.
Yes,
but the way Alex Proyas is going about this is some of the most like just
not good.
Like
poor taste.
Grow the F up, dude. Grow the F up. It's like Rupert Sanders.
Well, right. Eric, can I say this?
So Alex Proyas made a Crow movie. He made the best Crow movie, even with this one. Since then, they've had Crow City of Angels. That sucked. They had the third Crow. I can't remember the subtitle for that. That one wasn't bad, but it was straight to DVD. You know, it was fine. They had Wicked Prayer. Wasn't good. They had, this isn't even the first Eric Draven remake. That was Mark DeCostos in the Crow TV series. He played Eric Draven. So if we're going to give this movie crap because they're remaking The Crow with the same character, get over yourself, dude.
Okay, Eric, can I interject before you do your review? Here's what's interesting. The Crow from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 20%.
Yeah.
And then wait.
That's crap.
Okay, and then audience score, 64%.
It's a little closer.
Okay, but a little closer. But what I'm saying is the divide. So what is the audience seeing in The Crow that the critics are not?
So first of all, Eric and Shelley, in both movies, they have a relationship, and they both die. Eric comes back alive as the Crow or whatever, and then he gets to avenge Shelley's death. That's the same in both of these. What this one does, Crow 2024, is Shelley actually has a character in this. She was not a character in the first movie. You just saw like quick flashbacks and stuff. Brandon Lee pretty much carried that whole movie. The gothic tones look great. The tone, what do you call it?
Yeah, the tone.
The original Crow is great. As much as I think Alex Proyas is being a little baby, I still think his movie's great.
Yeah.
Much better than Dark City. I don't know why people love that one, but regardless.
Okay. Don't stay away from Dark City, buddy. No, go ahead. Good.
But with this one, you get Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs playing Eric and Shelley. They don't even die in this movie until like about halfway through.
Oh,
so you actually get to spend time with them. You get to spend time with them, watch their relationship grow, watch them play against each other. So when Eric walks in and Shelley's on the floor with people in the room with a bag over her head, and he's freaking out that she's dead, I'm right there with him because I got to watch their relationship develop. Now you may hate these characters, and like I don't want to spend time with them. Fair enough, but I think in this, and like, granted, a lot of this is melodramatic because it's a gothic movie. It's like, you got that heightened kind of romance to it, or heightened drama or melodrama or whatever you want to call it. And, it's a gothic movie. It's going to have that, Bill Skarsgård looks weird. That's the gothic thing. You're supposed to look weird. It's like we're both outcasts. We're both, and if they were cool, they wouldn't be outcasts.
Eric, do you think there's a little bit more, maybe regarding the vitriol for this movie? Do you think a little bit of it is due to the gatekeeping of The Crow?
Yes. I think that's exactly it.
Oh,
look, man, I think Jason Kleberg hated this.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but
I think he did.
So,
cash grab, FKA Twigs, horrible actress. I think
I don't think this is a cash grab though. I would say I disagree with him.
Okay, fair.
But
we love Jason Kleberg, by the way, which is Force 5 podcast. We love him.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
But Danny Houston plays Top Dollar. Oh no, he's not Top Dollar. He's a completely different character. You see how they can take two different things and do different things with them sometimes, and sometimes they do it better. Sometimes it's not as great. But
at least they're doing something different, right? So that's the point.
Once Eric and Shelley die, and then Eric comes back and becomes a Crow. Then it's just becomes revenge, and the action and the violence in this is. I mean, have you seen the trailer for it?
I have not seen the trailer for it.
Well, I would say when I saw the trailer, I'm like, this looks cool, and then I saw the movie, I'm like, this is cool. I think if you saw the trailer and you liked it, you're probably in for this. If you saw a trailer and you hated it, you're probably not in for this. If you got your arms crossed, they're not going to uncross. So I think
Are
for
people
what
missing out if they're not watching this in theaters because it's not? Do you think because of some people may be missing out on a good theatrical experience with The Crow?
I don't know that the theatrical experience in this would, because when I saw it, there weren't that many people in there. And I think people are already predisposed to hate this. So you're going to be in a theater with people like just crossing their arms, like, who wants to
But that
watch a
sucks
movie
for
like
you
that?
because you actually enjoyed this film in the theater, in the big screen.
Yeah. But yeah, I was the bright spot.
You were
Alex
the bright
Forrest was
spot.
down there being a dickhead, and I'm like,
All right.
I get Alex Forrest maybe angry that this movie exists, but dude, there have been other Crow movies. You did not create the Crow. James O'Barr did. That's his comic book, not yours. And yeah, quit being a baby about it. Look, anyone else listening, if you don't like the movie, fair. But I think the Alex Price going online and just crapping on this movie even before it comes out is just probably one of the saddest things I've seen in a while. So yeah.
Wow. All right. So,
all that said, I would give this probably 3.5.
3.5
I liked
out of 5.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
3.5. And I really enjoyed myself. Like, if you don't like it, I get it. I'm kind of curious what Peter Beta thinks of this because he hated the first Crow. I'm wondering if he likes this one better or if he hates this one as well. But yeah, just going for gothic melodrama and ultra violence on the back half. Have fun with it, manage expectations.
Okay, and that's Peter Beta from Middle Class Film Class.
And Alex,
yes,
calm down, dude. It's just a movie.
Down, you need to calm down on him. I'm going to send you a Blu-ray.
No, I'm being exactly as curmudgeonly as Alex Perez is, and I think I'm right here.
I'm going to send you God of War, a special Blu-ray edition. All right, so that's Eric Holmes' thoughts on The Crow. Again, it's currently in theaters, 3.5 out of 5 stars. I have to go. We have to go because Eric Holmes has to go right now. We have
I do.
Taken to,
oh,
yes,
wow.
yes, you do have to go right now. Any final thoughts, Eric Holmes, before we let you go? And
yeah, Alex Perez, as much crap as I gave you, you did give us an awesome Brandon Lee movie. So
yes, definitely.
And actually, I shouldn't have said that. That was a low blow early on in the thing. I probably shouldn't have said that.
Yes. And secretly, folks, you don't in his darkest moments because he's going to be leaving right now. Eric Holmes really does love Dark City. Just he doesn't want to admit it.
No, not about the Dark City thing. About the Brandon Lee thing. That was an accident. That was a low blow. I shouldn't have said.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. That things happen in the heat of passion.
But Alex, calm down. We'll talk about it. It's fine.
Okay. All right. Tell us what you guys think of The Crow and all the other movies we covered this week. Eric has to go. I have to go. You guys have to go. Tell us what movies you're watching. Thanks for supporting us again here over at CinemAddicts. And there's Bruce Purkey knocking. He needs some more dog biscuits and sausages and water. Eric, give it to him right now.
Pipe down.
Pipe down, Bruce. You're up next. But before you're next, Bruce, here's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining Cinematic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cinem-Attic. The attic of cinema is what it is, apparently. It's where I'm trapped. It's where I'm kept captive by my cohorts, Greg and Eric. It's where I am forced, kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000, to watch sometimes terrible, sometimes great movies. I just sit up there, they pry my eyes open, chain me to the walls while the bats and the rats fly and scurry. Anyway, that's what happens in the Cinem-Attic. I have 3 features this week. No recommendations. Why do I have no recommendations? It is because we have a Patreon episode this week. So if you want the equivalent of recommendations, you need to be a Patreon member, where we will be discussing 2 movies from 1980, Dressed to Kill, which is a Brian De Palma joint, and another movie called The Long Good Friday, which, if you have not ever heard of it, it's kind of weird, but not really weird. It means you're probably younger than me or Greg, but it's a Bob Hoskins movie, which, if you are younger, you probably at least know from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That would probably be the most famous thing you've seen him in. And he kind of got his breakout for most people from The Long Good Friday. Anyway, go check that out. When it comes up, if you are a Patreon member, and you kind of get the equivalent of some recommendations for this week. Usually I do that show live with them still every month. This month I will not be doing it live because my wife has been very sick with COVID, and I am sneaking away early in the morning to do these recordings. I will not be able to do the live sit down with the guys, and I do miss that. But I will still have a basic discussion of those 2 movies, maybe a few spoilers, as well as my top 10 list, which is always the 10 box office hit movies of whatever year we do, plus my 10 alternate picks of movies from that year that you might want to check out. Oh, this week we have 3 features. We have Slingshot. We have, oh boy, I forgot to write it down. Wait, I did write it down. Hey, look, I got notes. City of Dreams, and we also have The Wasp. All pretty small budget kind of indie movies. I will go from worst to first. Now, if you remember the CinemAddicts Facebook group, you already know what the worst is probably going to be. But if you don't, then you should be. But I will tell you, the worst movie from this week of those 3, drum roll please, is going to be Slingshot, directed by Mikael Hafstrom, starring Casey Affleck, who was just in a movie pretty recently that we liked, The Instigators. If I remember the name correctly. Maybe I don't. It was a weird name. Not very memorable, obviously. Casey Affleck plays John. We also have Lawrence Fishburne. Oh, some pretty good stars in this, playing Captain Franks. And we have Emily Beecham playing Zoe Morgan. And we have Tomer Capone playing Nash. If you know Tomer Capone, you might know him by face. He is the French dude in The Boys. I don't think I remember seeing him in much else, although I'm sure he's been in other things that I've seen. And if I go back and watch him, I'll probably notice him. So 3 of those, not Zoe, but the other 3 actors play characters who are on a mission to the moon Titan, the moon of Saturn, Titan, which I feel like Titan was also the goal for 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I might be wrong. Maybe it was Io. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, they're heading off to that moon because, now let's see if I remember the reasoning. I think it's because they're there to get methane, I think, if is the reason. Anyway, it takes a long time to get there, so they have to go into stasis, go into like a cryo chamber, and then wake up, and then do some of the work on the ship, and then go back into their cryo chamber. And it feels like from this movie that they're going into cryo chamber like for 90 days at a time. So the movie is, pardon me, everyone in our house has had COVID, so I will try to pause the coughs and things so you're not hearing too much of that. Cryo chamber, basically those segments kind of divided the movie. So he'll be waking up. Mainly our main character is the Casey Affleck character. He'll wake up, and then it'll be something that'll happen on the ship, and then he'll go into cryo and come back up again, and something has changed because it's been 90 days. But they're all supposed to go at the same time, all 3 of the guys. The basic idea is they're going to go off to Titan. They're going to do a slingshot maneuver around Jupiter. The gravity will give them an extra speed boost, which will get them faster to Titan. And that particular maneuver is supposed to be a little bit dangerous. So it's, what do I say about this movie? You've seen movies like this before. One or several isolated people in space. I just mentioned one, 2001. This year we had Spaceman, which a lot of people did not like. I kind of enjoyed Spaceman. You have a lot of these movies where it's like dude or a few dudes or a few dudes and women isolated in space on a mission, and things somehow go awry, and their sanity, or the relationship between the members goes sideways, stuff like that. The basic one here is, very quickly, there is some kind of an impact with the ship. It doesn't seem to bother the ship. They do a bunch of diagnostics, and everything on the ship says it's okay, but they do see the physical damage. In fact, Casey Affleck was hit by a panel off of the ceiling, and they think that, well, should we turn around? There's a conflict between the members. Like, the captain says everything in the diagnostic says it's fine. If we see anything that says it's not fine, we'll turn around. Frenchie says it's not going to be fine. We're going to be stuck out in space. We're going to die. We should turn around. And then in the middle, you've got Casey's Affleck's character basically at the moment deciding to go with the captain, but being pressured by Frenchie to turn around. That's, I guess, your basic story and basic conflict. Within this, you have constant flashbacks to a budding romance and sadness with Zoe's character back on Earth, who he met when he was getting chosen and deciding to go off to space. Now, why is this the worst of the week? First of all, we've seen movies like this before, versions of this. So it's not very original right out the gate. Second of all, the look is fine. It would be fine for a Star Trek episode, and I know it's lower budget, but if you're lower budget, I think you do something to make the sets and the setting more interesting. But for me, it looked kind of like generic, shiny, digital starship kind of setting, and there's kind of a circular look to it, like that he runs around it at one point. He's exercising, and to me, it feels kind of cheap. There's a moment where they're putting on space helmets, and I swear the visors looked like really cheap plastic. So I don't know, it might just be me, but the look of it wasn't great. The other thing about it was, well, there's a few things about it. That was one. Second, this kind of movie makes you wonder, like, what is really going on? This is one of those kind of movies. Like, really quickly on, you're like, what's really going on? What's happening here? Like, there's a mystery to be unraveled. There's something that you're going to discover. And I'm trying to be vague and not, spoil things. At around the 20-minute mark, I wrote in my notes 2 or 3 of the things I thought might be happening. And at least one of those I was totally right about. And I was pretty sure I was right about it. I'm not going to say what I guessed because I don't want to obviously give it away. Let's just say as this progresses, it becomes less and less compelling to me. I mean, it's kind of hackneyed. The conflict isn't very interesting. The romance/loss is kind of, you've seen so many versions of this before. It's kind of tedious. So I would say the biggest knock of all things is that for me, this movie was just not very interesting. It was just tedious. I didn't really care about the characters. I didn't know what the characters were doing that I should be caring about. I mean, the conflict is there. Sure, it's like the most basic conflict. Should we turn around or should we go forward? But the characters themselves, I didn't really feel the conflict there, and I was supposed to, and I did not. Now, the worst thing about this movie, the reason it probably gets at least a star down for me, is the finale. And once again, I will not say what the finale is. It gives you some twists, and I guess I shouldn't even say it gives you some twists, but you know what? It doesn't matter because there are more twists in the end. This is one of those movies where it's like it thinks it's blowing your mind, and it really was not blowing my mind. It was just annoying me and making me angrier. And basically, it'll give you one twist, and then it'll be like, "Ooh, didn't that blow your mind?" And it's like, "Wait, you thought it was that? Ha ha ha! It might even be more." And it might even be more. It's one of those kind of movies. And it's every time it does one of those things, it's like, yeah, no, I'm unsold on this whole thing. So this feels like a movie that'll go straight to Netflix or Paramount Plus or whatever. I think it's going to the theater. I don't know exactly why. I know there's a great podcast called How Did This Get Made? This qualifies absolutely, although it's not as fun as those movies are. This isn't a fun, bad movie. It's just a dull, bad movie, which is worse than a fun, bad movie, in my opinion. Like a fun, bad movie could be a 1-star banger or a 3-star banger. This isn't good enough for either of those. It is a dull, not a banger, but it's also not good. And I wonder how all these name actors, I mean, I know some of them aren't really on the A list, but they're big enough to when they are on this name, their names to be seen on this. And that the fact they got pulled to this must just purely be money, I guess, because it's not very good. I'll go 1.5 stars. That's about as good as I can do. If the twist hadn't been so terrible, it would have been just dull. It would have been okay acted. I would have probably given 2 stars, but it's 1.5, and I'm almost going towards 1, but I'll go 1.5. It's a generous 1.5 stars. I would say no one should really go out for this. Okay, next. We've got, you hear that? That's my rattling notes. We've got City of Dreams by Mohit Ramchandani. I said that terribly. Sorry, guy. This is a really interesting movie to try to genuinely review. Now, here's the reason why. Sound of Freedom, big deal last year. Lots of controversy over being whether it was like a really good action, thriller social movie, or whether it was just propaganda for alt-right MAGA heads. Well, this is not the same director or anything for this movie, I don't believe, but it is loudly on the poster promoted as from one of the producers or from the producers of Sound of Freedom, blah, blah, blah. Come watch this, cutting, movie that's going to, uncover the veil from your eyes. City of Dreams. So that being said, I'm going to really try to pull off all of my conceptions and my thoughts and give you as as valid a review as I can for this, but I can't wrap it up totally from my personal beliefs and what I think is going on here, but I will still try to be somewhat fair to it. But all that you should probably take with a grain of salt. If you love Sound of Freedom, this might work great for you. Basic idea of this is you've got Jesus, played by, I've got to look up his name here, Ari Lopez. You also have, he's like your main star. He's in almost every single scene, if not every single scene of this movie. And you got Jason Patrick, got Sam Levine, Renata Vaca. That's some of the names that you may or may not know, but I kind of knew them. Jason Patrick used to be kind of a name actor, not so much anymore. Basic concept is this kid Jesus. He dreams of being a soccer star. He is somehow arranged to go to this soccer kind of camp thing in America, and he's got someone to get him there. They don't really tell you exactly, other than it looks like a guy was paid to take him there, a coyote, whatever you want to call him, paid to take him into America so he can get into this, have a chance to get into the soccer camp. So right off the gate, doesn't seem like the way that most people probably get into America. Plus, he literally gets into this fancy car with this dude, and off he goes. It's like, wow, man, that's all it takes to get to America. You can pay a guy, and he puts you in a fancy car, and he takes you. And of course, the fancy car is a ruse. It's a dream. He is being sold into child slavery now. So everything in this is very dramatic. And sure, are there people that are put into various forms of servitude, especially immigrants? Are they taken advantage of and stuck into sweat houses and stuck into, prostitution and all kinds of things? Yes, absolutely. These things I'm sure do happen. And as far as what he gets put into, it's probably kind of realistic. He's basically put into this house in LA. It looks like this big old house that kind of has gone into disrepair, a really big house, which is the one thing that kind of throws me off, because that house in LA is probably worth, I don't know, $5 million or something. I know if it's in like Seattle, that house would be worth at least a couple $1,000,000. Even though it's ramshackled, it's huge, and it's in LA. Anyway, he's there with, I don't know, like 15 or 20 immigrants. Basically, they're captive, and they just work in the stereotypical sweatshop, where they're literally just sewing all day on these like old-fashioned sewing machines, sewing the same dress for a day, and they have to do so many, and if they do something wrong, there's physical punishment. The place is run kind of this older dude who seems like a nice fatherly figure, but of course he's not. And then there's like his right arm, strong arm guy. It looks like he's supposed to be a MS-13, kind of a gang member. So I'll list all of the tropes here in a minute, but if you haven't got them, you should be able to kind of figure it out. And he finds out very quickly, if you cross them, they'll beat you, strap you to this wood thing and whip you. Lots of people are getting abused there. Right off the bat, one of the first things that happens is when he does something wrong, he gets a hot iron to his chest. So all this is supposed to be like this hard-hitting expose of the brutality and the terror and the horror of child labor coming through immigrants in America. I think that is kind of its approach. Like, wow, we're going to show you the brutal truth. That's kind of the idea. Some of the girls that are in there all of a sudden just disappear, and you don't know why, and you don't know what happened to them. And that's kind of it. It's his enduring the horror and the terror and the prison, being imprisoned, and then whether or not he's going to escape that. And all the time he keeps having dreams and daydreams of being a soccer star. That's what he wanted to be all along. And Jason Patrick plays the cop that he runs across a couple times, and who, is a good intentioned cop. And the cop has a woman partner who they really kind of play as a fool until she's not, and a bunch of other characters. So how do you rate this? First of all, the Christian symbology is quite heavy-handed. I mean, the fact that you have your main character named Jesus, that he's absolutely, pure and good intentioned, and undergoes tons of physical suffering. I mean, the parallels to the Passion of the Christ are very obvious. But take that away, is it a good, I guess, prison survival in the face of all keeping your humanity kind of movie? It's kind of a generic one. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's well produced for this kind of a budget it has. But the whole time, there's something nagging at me. And I don't know if it's because I already knew the producers or if I would have actually known it. And that's kind of a problem. But it's kind of got this weird QAnon adjacent messaging all the way throughout that I could not shake. And part of it is it's just the people who are doing everything. There's just some weird stuff there. Like, for example, the coyote guy, the recruiter guy or whatever, he's he's coded as a gay man very overtly. Like, why? Because obviously in this world, gay people are evil, right? I mean, that's kind of the subtext. Immoral. That's the whole idea, right? You know, the white cop is good. There is a person who kind of runs the textile center and distribution who just happens to be a Jewish guy. There are moments where the cops should be able to help stop this, and they're stopped by the officials within the community above them in the police department. So there is a conspiracy within the system going on. Once again, QAnon adjacent. There is a woman who comes down and takes the women away, and we find out later puts them into basically child either prostitution and or like illegal underage like pornography. You're meant to think. Once again, very QAnon adjacent. And that woman, I don't know what she's supposed to be as far as her background, but she has facial and head coverings, so it makes me think she's supposed to be Islamic, possibly. There's just a lot of things that make me think like, wow, this is just trying to kind of tick all the boxes. It may not be 100% 2 feet in that whole QAnon thing, but it's definitely trading on a lot of the tropes and a lot of the expectations of that. And then finally, when all is said and done, the real thing that kind of bugged me about the movie was like, well, what is the point of the movie? So a movie like this could be just a straight adventure where it's just going to be like, can my character make it out and survive? But this movie obviously does have a social point, and it's trying to like really be a hard-hitting, like I said, expose. It's trying to reveal a truth that a lot of people don't know about the textile industry and just child slavery in America. And the world. That's its thrust, you know? And if that's the case, the question becomes at the end of this, I'm not going to say how it ends, obviously, but the question at the end is like, well, what are we supposed to do about that? Like, what are you suggesting? I mean, it's terrible if you believe this, and I believe it's probably played up to a really great degree, but I'm sure there's a lot of bad stuff going on out there. What is the point? What do we try to do to stop this? Just being aware of it doesn't stop it. Like, it's already illegal. So sure, we should stop it. We should get it to be ending. And I couldn't help but think right now, I'm just going to say one side of the nation, one of the big things that they're promoting is that if their person makes it into the presidency, the first thing they want to do is mass deportation, because all the people flooding across the border in Mexico are obviously rapists and killers and taken out of insane asylums, and they're criminals and blah blah blah. You hear this all the time. That's the fear mongering, right? That's the belief. But this movie, which would seem to be in that camp, kind of has its feet in both things, right? Like, well, if they're all that, then why are we being shown these people who obviously are coming just to make it in another world and are being abused terribly when they get here and are just innocent people? So which ones are they? And if the world that we're being shown in the movie is true, and that most of the people that are here are just being abused and in a terrible situation, then should we make it easier for them to come here, or make it easier for them to legally come here so they don't have to resort to something like this? And so things like this will have no shadow protection, because if you're just sending them back the minute you get them here, then obviously you're just abusing them twice. So if you get my point, the movie doesn't, I don't think the movie knows really where it's trying to send people and do with people. It's not treating with people as much as it's treating them as like just once again, the characters in this are being treated as pawns to just somehow demonstrate how horrible the world is right now, and that how if people were just, I guess, just better, then things would be better. I don't know. Anyway, not a good movie. I kind of went on too long, but hopefully you kind of get my point. well, it's not as bad. Believe it or not, it's not as bad as Slingshot. So I'm going to give this thing 2 stars, which is once again, it's just not. It's a super downer. It's kind of like Passion of the Christ. You're like, well, this is really well made, but I just watched a guy get beat for 2 hours. Sure, he's Jesus, but he just got beat for 2 hours. And this movie's kind of the same sort of thing. You're just seeing a kid get abused and having a horrible situation for almost 2 hours. And you're like, okay, it was terrible, but okay. Anyway, last but not least, we have a movie called The Wasp. Almost a two-hander, but not quite. Directed by probably Guillaume Morales. The two main characters you want to know here are Heather, played by Naomi Harris, and Carla, played by Natalie Dormer, which you probably know Natalie Dormer, even if you don't know her by name, which probably a lot of you do. But if you don't know her by name, you know her by face. And except I didn't recognize her hardly in this, but you would know her. She is most famous for me from Game of Thrones, but she also had a pretty big role in the, not Mockingbird. Oh my gosh, my brain's totally forgot the name. The Hunger Games series. There you go. Oh, old man brain. Anyway, this whole basic idea is Heather and Carla. Carla is Natalie Dormer. Heather is Naomi Harris. Heather is, rich, upper middle class woman. You can see by little things you see that she just wants to get pregnant, but she may be having kind of a little rough time with her husband. At first, you see her being annoyed by this wasp nest that's in the ceiling of her kitchen, and at one point she just gets so frustrated she rips it out and it just fills their whole kitchen with wasps. And of course they have to come out and get a exterminator, and it happens during a party, so everyone has to leave because the wasp nest gets destroyed. Anyway, her life is becoming frustrated, and you feel like she's just a tightly wound woman. She's just one of those kind of characters you feel like they want everything to be kind of a perfect world, and it just isn't happening, and it's driving them a little bit nutty. And they're just trying to keep it buttoned up, and you just have a feeling there could be explode at any moment. Then, shortly in the movie, she goes and finds an old school friend. Now, right out of the beginning, you have a quick flashback of 2 little girls, and you assume it's her and her friend that she's going to go meet because you are meeting these 2 characters in the movie. And the little flashback you have is them finding an injured bird in the forest, and so Carla, not Heather, Carla the friend is a little girl. You see, they both look at this suffering bird, and Carla takes a rock and kills the bird. Now, there is much more flashbacks that you get, but that's just one that kind of informs the relationship, that the tightly wound current woman, kind of stood and watched as a little girl, and the friend that she's going to meet, who we haven't quite known yet, as a little girl, was able to put the animal out of its misery. What happens is she meets up with Carla, and Carla works like at a supermarket. Carla seems to have 3 or 4 kids. Carla's currently pregnant. Carla's living a lower middle class life as far as economical stuff. She just seems to be like, not living this high class, high suburban kind of a Heather life. She's living more like, day to day, smoking on her breaks in the back, loading dock kind of life. And you can tell when Heather comes to take Carla out to lunch and kind of reconnect after years and years, and Carla's kind of like, why are you, what's this all about? You haven't been friends with me all this time, and now all of a sudden you're my friend. Well, it becomes out really quick. I almost don't know if I should tell this to you guys. I'm going to tell it to you guys because you've already heard a review, probably if you don't have this information in the first review from Eric and Greg, I'm going to give it to you now because it's a basic setup. Almost diabolique-like. Heather says, I have been having trouble with my husband for a while. I created a fake account to see if he would cheat, and he basically has got to the point where he wants to meet the woman he's been talking to. I'm the woman. He doesn't know this. Pina colada style. He doesn't know it's me that he's actually been romancing with online. Well, because of that, I want him killed. And you are going to do it. And here's a whole bunch of money to do it. Let's make the plan. And if you know diabolique, that's kind of the idea of diabolique. The woman and the mistress team up to kill the man. I'm in. Interesting. Cool. And like I said, a good chunk of this movie becomes a twofer between these two because they're planning at the same time, they're reconnecting at the same time. There might be some former conflicts they have to work out as former friends who really obviously have been disconnected for years and years. In that way, it does dip a little bit into two-person play territory where it's a lot of them just talking and hashing things out amidst flashbacks in a single setting. So if you don't like that kind of movie, it might be a drawback for you. And I will just say the original setup, which I gave you, the Diabolique setup, things go take turns. It does not as easy as that. In some ways, I'm a little disappointed by the movie because of that. I think it gets a little bit too high on its own supply. I feel like it becomes a little bit like writerly and scripty, where I could kind of see a writer forcing things to happen to make cool little turns, as opposed to letting the characters naturally occur and letting whatever happens happens. I don't know if that makes sense. I think that when a writer is pushing things to happen, it always seems a little less authentic than when they just seem to happen organically. And that is a really hard thing to pull off. So a lot of times you get these writerly techniques. But this movie felt like it almost could have just stuck with purely the Diabolique setup. And I feel like I would have enjoyed that little thriller a little more than what it became. I think it had a little higher ambitions, but I do respect the higher ambitions. So I'm kind of a little torn on that. I wouldn't say I didn't like it. I did like it for sure. I think I could have really liked this as a like I said, a tight kind of suspense crime thriller. And it became a little more than that, but also that in the long run became a little less entertaining to me. For whatever reason, I guess maybe because my brain was already primed for what it said it was going to be. And when it became something else, I was like, oh, well, that's okay, but not as good as it would have been. That kind of was my feeling for when I watched this. Either way, two great performances. Natalie Dormer, I swear, I did not even notice it was her. I think I had to go back and look and like, wait, that's Natalie Dormer? Oh my gosh. And then once I saw it was her, I could see it was her. But boy, she did not seem like Natalie Dormer that I've seen before. She definitely sunk into a character, which I quite appreciated. And I really liked the character played by Naomi Harris too. I don't really know her, and I probably should have gone back and looked. I'm sure I've seen her in things, but she really did a great job. And these two had to kind of hold the whole movie. So all that being said, this is a pretty effective little twisty, like I said, kind of a thriller slash, drama, character piece with enough. And I'm kind of curious. I'm curious to see. I think Greg liked this probably quite a bit. It feels like something he'd like. And I think Eric would like this too, because I think that it's not a courtroom drama, but it has a lot of two characters battling verbally back and forth and kind of watching that interplay and kind of the struggle between two characters. I think he might appreciate that quite a bit. There is a little bit of a kind of a wrap up that's a little too tidy and a little too, like I said, like a play almost. Like it requires you to do some belief suspension. Didn't quite 100% work for me, but I was able to forgive it. I think my final take on this will be 3.5. This is one of those movies that if you saw it pop up on Hulu or one of those services, and you were just like, well, it looks like a generic thriller, and you popped it on and just like, whatever, it's 90 minutes, let's give it a try. I feel like you would be surprised that you enjoyed it as much as you did and that it was better than you expected. This is one of those expectation movies. If you went in thinking like, this is going to be the best movie I've ever seen, you're going to be like, what the heck? This is okay. So either way, I'd say it's solid little suspense dramatic thriller called The Wasp. 3.5 stars. All right. And that is it. That's all I got for this week. If you want more, you got to give me a Patreon. Sorry, that's the way it works. I hope you enjoyed this one. And I will be talking to you next week. I don't know what we have for sure coming up next week, other than I know one of the movies we're going to see is a documentary about whether Lincoln was gay. Seems designed to just piss off half the world, but I'm curious. Anyway, hope it goes well, guys, and let us know what you think. And if you have any questions or suggestions, shoot them our way. You know how to find us. It's pretty easy. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Bye.